My name is Aaron and I'm a teacher here at ILI. This is video 3 in our IELTS series, okay? In video 1, Pat gave you some general tips and advice on the IELTS test. In video 2, Pat continued this by giving you some speaking advice. And now for video 3, I'm going to give you some more specific advice on part 1 of the speaking exam. Okay? So, now before we begin, there's something that's very important for me to mention, and that is that you should not memorize your answers. What do I mean by this? Well, you want to give an answer that is very natural sounding. If you give a very planned, robotic answer, the examiner will pick up on that. They will recognize it very easily, and they will either ask you some very difficult questions or they will give you a failing score. All right, so now the first part of the speaking test, here is some general information about it, okay? It will be about 4 to 5 minutes, and it will cover some personal topics about you. For example, maybe some of your hobbies, your hometown, things you like to do in your free time, or maybe your friends. There's going to be between 10 to 12 questions on 3 or 4 topics. Now, for the first tip on how to take the speaking test part 1. Number 1 is answer the question. So there's different types of questions that you may be asked. Maybe they'll ask you to say how often you do something, or give some examples of things that you like to do. So, for example, if the question is, how long have you been living in Ho Chi Minh City? And you give an answer like, since I was in high school. Okay, well that's true, perhaps, but it doesn't give an amount of time. How long? How old are you now? Maybe that was 10 years ago. Maybe it was 5 years ago. We're not really sure. So if it's how long, you should give an amount of time, right? Something like 5 years, 10 years, however long it's been, okay? So you need to give a relevant answer, all right? Now, part 2, tip 2 is make sure that your answer is neither too short or too long. How long should your answer be? For part 1 of the speaking test, your answer should be around 20 seconds. It could be 15 seconds, 25 seconds, but generally you don't want to go too far away from this amount of time. All right, now for tip number 3, paraphrase the question. What do I mean by paraphrase? Let's talk about this, okay? To paraphrase means to say something with the same meaning but using different words, okay? So for example, if the question is, what are some things that you often do in your free time? Okay, let's think about other ways that we can say the same thing but with different words, okay? How often? Maybe when do you do things and how many times per week? And free time, leisure time, or time when you're not working, right? So you could give an answer like, well, when I'm not at work, some things I like to do are play basketball and go to coffee with my friends. I do these things usually every weekend, okay? So you say how often you do it, and you give another answer that's not the exact same as the question. You're not just repeating what the examiner said, you are using different words for the same meaning. Okay? And you should also remember to give details when you do this, all right? Paraphrase and give some extra details, okay? Now for tip number 4. You should speak naturally in the speaking test. Speak naturally. Okay, what do I mean by speak naturally? Well, think about how a robot talks in the movies, right? They talk very simply and without any rise in their intonation. But we don't talk like that in our day-to-day conversations, do we? No, our intonation rises or falls, right? We are comfortable with the people that we speak with, and so we don't have to think about the way we talk. We just speak naturally. And you should try to do this with the examiner as well. It may be difficult if you're nervous to speak naturally, but do your best. Because if you speak in a very robotic way, without any natural stress and intonation in your voice, the examiner will pick up on it. And also, it will be very difficult for them to understand your pronunciation and some of the important elements in your speech, which they are trained to hear in natural speech. Okay? So let me give you an example of a bad answer. If you are asked about something that you like, what are some sports that you like? And you say, I like basketball. Volleyball's good too. It doesn't seem interesting first, and also it's just not a very entertaining answer to listen to for the examiner, okay? This may affect your score in a negative way. Even if it's a subject that you're not interested in, you should pretend to be interested, okay? So for example, what are some sports that you like? Well, I really like basketball, and volleyball's fun to watch too. I don't like to play it, but watching it is great. Even something as simple as putting a smile on your face can influence the way the examiner perceives your answer, okay? All right, now let's move on to the fifth tip, all right? Don't try and give the perfect answer, okay? Don't try to be perfect. Don't try to be perfect. Unless you are a native speaker who should be getting a 9 on the IELTS, it is understood by the examiner that you will make some mistakes. It's fine. Don't worry about every little thing you say and whether or not the grammar is correct. If you make some mistakes, sure, the examiner will notice them, but they are trained to understand how many mistakes you should have at your level. Even for a 7 or an 8 level, you're going to make mistakes. The important thing here is to give an answer and not get stuck on whether or not your grammar is perfect, okay? An answer that has some mistakes, but you say something, is better than an answer which has no mistakes, but you say nothing. Okay? So try to speak with some fluency. If you pause and stop too many times, the examiner will definitely make a note and your score will decrease. Okay? And now, tip number 6, and the most important tip, okay? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. Now, maybe you don't have someone in your life that you can talk with at a high level for the IELTS test. If you don't, it's okay. You can still do something by recording yourself and doing a self-analysis. Self-analysis, what does that mean? Okay, self meaning you, analysis, you watch the video of you giving an answer and give yourself some feedback. What did you do well and what could you improve on? Okay? If you do have people in your life that you can talk to in English, you should use them. They are a very valuable resource, okay? Practice having them play the examiner, and you can find some practice speaking tests online where they can read them and you can give an example answer, okay? Cambridge IELTS has many practice books which you can find, and you can use these as an incredibly useful tool to improve your speaking. All right, now let's recap what we have already talked about, okay? Number 1, you should answer the question. Give a relevant answer. Number 2, make sure it's not too short and not too long. Should be between 2 and 4 sentences. Okay? Number 3, paraphrase. Do not just repeat the question, okay? Number 4, speak naturally. Don't speak like a robot. Nobody likes that. Speak naturally. Tip number 5, forget being perfect, okay? Nobody is perfect. You won't be either. Just try to give an answer. And number 6, practice, practice, practice. All right. This concludes the lesson for today. Thank you very much for joining me here at ILI. I wish you good luck in your IELTS preparation. Until next time.